ROI should be less than 3 years. We want every farmer to be break even certainly within 3 years.
In the future, will all farmers kill weeds with lasers? Hello and welcome to TechFirst. My name is John Koetsier. In 2021, I chatted to today's guest about his self-driving farm bot that kills weeds with lasers. Today, Carbon Robotics is still in business. That's not guaranteed with every startup, so that's good news. They've even launched LaserWeeder G2 and AutoTractor, both of which we're going to chat about today. It's definitely time to chat again. His name, the CEO, is Paul Mikesell. Welcome, Paul. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. Wow, was it really since 2021? Since last
I couldn't believe it. I mean, I'm horrible at the past, but I had to check back. I actually looked. It doesn't seem that long ago. And I guess you're living startup years right now, so everything's a blur.
Yeah, that's true enough. That is true enough. Yes. So, 2021 was an exciting time for us. I think at the time we were just kind of getting going on our manufacturing, and we probably had not even delivered the first units yet.
You had some in the field, but I'm not sure that they were testing, working. Yeah. I guess for everybody who didn't watch the first one, give us the brief intro to Carbon Robotics.
You bet. Laser weeding was something that I came up with in my backyard, and it was born out of a desire to do something with this new technology we had in the areas of AI, computer vision, neural nets, to be able to make computers understand the world around them. And it was a technology that I had been at the forefront of in a bunch of different ways, and also just kind of an avid learner and participant from my former jobs. Started talking to a bunch of farmers about their problems, and weed control kept coming up as one of the biggest issues. And so me being at the time, really an expert in AI systems, seeing that this problem was one that nobody was really spending, I think, the right kind of energy on solving, and perhaps not really knowing very much about farming, I decided to try lasers.
Cool. So a quick summary, you look, you see what's on the ground as you're passing over it, you light it up, you see, okay, this is a weed, this is a plant, but it's not the one we want growing in this field at this particular time. You see what's good stuff, and you target lasers and hit it. And so farmers don't have to use as much herbicide, I should say, which is good because it's expensive and it's not great for the soil. In a lot of other cases, getting more expensive the last few years as well. So you've introduced LaserWeeder G2. Give us the specs, the stats on this new machine.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is the thing about lasers killing weeds that was born out of really some original research that we did at this company, spending time talking with the local universities, University of Washington here, my alma mater. That's where I have my computer science degree from. The plant sciences and horticulture department, they were really helpful with us, showing us and teaching us about how plants grow. And that was where we learned about the meristem, the undifferentiated meristematic growth cells of a plant. And the key technological or biological insight, I guess, that makes the whole thing work is that if you target a laser effectively, which means accurately, right on the meristem, and you burn that out, you will kill the plant. Okay.
Wow.
So that's how laser weeding works. That's why laser weeding works. And we've been really...
So just to understand that 100%, you don't have to burn the whole thing.
Yeah.
You don't have to generally target it. You need to target a specific area.
That's correct. Yeah.
How small is that area?
It depends on the plant size, but when we get in there, so if you get us in early, we like to go in early because our vision system is so strong. If the plant is basically less than an inch in diameter, it's extremely effective. And less than an inch in diameter, that meristem is probably, call it 3 millimeters. I know I'm mixing metric and standard there.
Wow.
Beam size.
So you have to be super precise.
Very precise. Yeah, extremely precise. And if you do it well, you can do it fast. And if you do it fast, then it becomes effective and has ROI. So that was the real thing. So getting the weeds to die and learning that they would die from a precise laser application was a key technological hurdle and insight that came out of us just being curious, really, and exploring, right? Exploring. It's one of those things that, how many people do you pass in your life that have interesting stories that you just don't think to ask about? Well, that was
Yeah.
how I discovered farming. That's how I learned about farming. That's how I met farmers. I was just curious and started. Same thing on this plant thing. I was just, well, maybe I can go and see if some professors want to talk to me about plants. Now, the thing I should have realized is the plant sciences and horticultural department in a lot of these universities doesn't have a ton of visitors just stopping by asking about stuff. So they're very, very excited to talk to you about cool new uses and applications of technology in their field, right?
Yeah.
I thought that was really great. Okay, so I love that. I just love this idea about if you just take the time to talk to people with different background than you have, you look to apply your interest and expertise in their area, surprising things can happen. That's the story.
Yeah.
That's really the story, at least of the basics of the science of LaserWeeder. So yeah, LaserWeeder 1.0 was a big success. Machines all around the world. We started shipping those in 2022. And then this year, 2025, we announced the LaserWeeder G2, the generation 2, which is second generation of LaserWeeder that utilizes a more modular system. And so instead of having a machine that has the Gen 1 was sort of 3 sections of 10 lasers in each of those sections, and every section is 80 inches wide. So if you're a farmer on 80-inch rows, you'll do 3 80s, or if you're doing 40s, you do 6 40s, right? It's okay.
Yeah.
Pretty simple, but that has a limit because you basically want to be on one of the sizes, right? We have people doing 60 inches, etc. But basically you're doing 3 rows of one configuration or another. And so with the G2 now, because every laser module is meant to cover a specific size, it covers about 22 inches across, then you just sort of define the areas where you want to laser weed, and then that tells you how many modules and where. And the reason, and people will do this because they'll use other techniques to perhaps get the weeds out in between. They'll do flaming, or they'll do cultivating or something like that. And they focus the laser on the precise targeted parts where the plants really grow, because we get rid of those plants. And then for the cheaper, easier stuff, you just run a blade through it or whatever. And so that's worked really well. And we can get all the way down. We have a single 80-inch machine. Okay, so for those smaller farmers, or we've also found those useful in areas, southern Spain and Italy, for example, where they do a lot of tunnel agriculture. So that they have tunnels, big hoops with plastic that they use, so they can grow all year round. It keeps the sun off, and they don't want them to get too much sun, and it protects against wind and stuff. So those machines can get in the tunnels, and that's been very effective and helpful for those folks. And then we scale all the way up to a 40-foot machine that we use for corn and soy in the Midwest.
Wow.
And so that modular architecture has worked really well for that kind of stuff. It also happened to make the units lighter just because of the way we built it. So that was important. And then we did come up with a new generation of lasers that didn't exist before. Again, this was a partnership with some of the laser manufacturers to develop a new style of laser that didn't exist even when we started the G1, and certainly didn't exist up until very late in 2024. Built for us. We want something that's high power, specific spot size, in a eye safe wavelength, right? So not blue light laser, nothing that's going to be in the visual spectrum. So we got that. We're able to get that, but that really comes with scale, right? You need to be able to buy lasers in chunks of thousands at a time to make that kind of partnership work. And so we did that. And so so the G2, everybody loves the G2, great machine. Those are going out there. We've sold quite a few of those. We're shipping a huge number of those every month. We have our own manufacturing now. That's also new.
Cool.
So we manufacture our own stuff.
If somebody wants to order one of those, what kind of price tag are we looking at?
They are slightly more expensive than the G1s were. The standard 20-footer goes for $1.4 million. And then everything scales from there.
Gotcha.
And doing our own manufacturing was good too. It allowed us to the other thing that was interesting about this is those machines, if we had manufactured them at a contract manufacturer, would have been way more expensive. So we transitioned to our own manufacturing when we switched to the G2. And we took a lot of that efficiencies in running our own manufacturing now and applied it so that the G2 is, yes, it's more expensive than the G1, but not as much more as what accounts for the performance and acceleration on that.
Is this the sort of thing that some farmers will buy and then they'll use around the surrounding area on other farmers? Because I know that happens with harvesters, right? Not everybody buys the biggest, newest, most expensive thing, but sometimes they get a neighbor in to harvest for them, or they're using a company that does it.
Yeah, they'll do that. They'll even do it north to south. So folks in Idaho sharing LaserWeeder purchases with folks out of Yuma, Arizona, for example, where they do a lot
Interesting.
of winter. Yeah. Same thing happens in Europe. They'll do the same thing from UK to Spain, for example.
Huh. Smart. Use the asset, right?
Yeah, use the asset, and people do it in a couple different ways. Sometimes they'll do, as you're suggesting, kind of as a service. So I bought it, but then I'm going to rent it out in these other farms in the other part of the season. Sometimes they'll actually buy it together. Two farms buy it together, and they'll make an entity to purchase the machine, and then everything just flips to the entity. That's been good. Obviously, doing that, people want to get to make sure they either have a trusted relationship with the other person. Right. But that's all been going really well. And usually farmers do have partnerships, particularly in opposite growing cycles, because they will sort of co-share some of the branding and marketing in some cases, so that they can do supply agreements that are longer than their individual growing season. So some of those relationships are pre-existing, and then LaserWeeder slots right into that.
If somebody gets one of these, let's say they get the big ass model, right? They're doing corn somewhere in the Midwest or something like that. What kind of payback period are you looking at in terms of herbicides you don't have to buy, in terms of crop yield?
ROI should be less than 3 years. We want every farmer to be break even, certainly within 3 years. And it's a combination of labor savings. So if you're doing organics, definitely labor is the primary driver. But even a lot of the conventional folks are still hiring hand labor to go out into the field to clean up either stuff the herbicide missed, stuff that the herbicide was ineffective against, either because of timing, humidity, wind, all this other stuff, or there just isn't good chemicals for the weed. And then even more specifically, herbicide resistant weeds. So people are still relying on people for a lot of this stuff. So we take care of all that. You don't need to do that. And then of course, if you're more of a conventional grower, you save on the herbicides. But then the big thing that we were able to show in conventional crops that took a while to prove was how much yield improvement you get by not blasting your crops with these chemicals, which are meant to destroy plant growth.
Yes.
And the yield improvements can be dramatic, in some cases up to 50% yield improvements, 50% yield improvements. And so that's on the conventional side, that's where a lot of they lean more into the ROI of yield improvement. And then
Wow. So that really helps on your payback period as well. If you're getting better yield as well as not spending on the herbicide, and you've got a product that if you're using this solely, you could market as organic, and you're not that adds a bump as well. Super interesting. Okay. Tell us about LaserWeeder 2 as it's passing by. How many lasers does it carry? How many weeds can it light up? What speed can it go? How quick is your targeting system? That sort of stuff.
So the LaserWeeder, every one of the modules has 2 lasers inside of it. On our standard 20-foot machine, we have 12 modules in there. So there'll be 24 lasers across that. To target and kill a weed is, depending on size of the weed, is anywhere from 20 milliseconds to 150 milliseconds. So that includes time for the servos to move and get to the weed and turn on the laser and kill the thing.
Interesting.
So pretty fast. I mean, they will move. I don't even know what our current stats are. The top end of the G1 was about 5,000 weeds a minute. So I think we're probably we must be much closer to about 8,000 to 10,000 weeds a minute at this point.
8,000 to 10,000 weeds per minute. And how fast does the machine travel across the farm?
We'll be doing on the top end, that would be about call it 3 to 4 acres an hour on the top end.
3 to 4 acres an hour. Interesting. Okay. So it's usable even for a larger farm.
Oh yeah.
You're covering area.
Yeah, it'll move. And we really look at it as the ROI on a per acre basis. You should be making money back on every acre.
Wow. Cool. Very, very cool. Okay, so LaserWeeder G2 is not the only new thing you've got. You've also got AutoTractor. Tell us about AutoTractor. I mean, it sounds pretty obvious from the name. It's a self-driving tractor, but I'm sure there's more to it.
We had a self-driving autonomy stack from our initial early LaserWeeder. So this probably, if the last time we spoke was 2021, those were probably the machines you saw. So they were self-driving, they had lasers in them. For a number of reasons, the farms at that time, at least in our markets, vegetable, specialty crops, and big, large acre row crops, were not really that set up for autonomy. There's a number of issues, some of them regulatory, but more of them practical. And so that was why we took a step back from autonomy in the LaserWeeder, and we produced that as a pull-behind implement. And so all of the LaserWeeders that we sold are pull-behinds. But we had this autonomy stack. And after the introduction of LaserWeeder and everybody using it, what we realized was this is great because you and I have been having this conversation about ROI. So it kind of dovetails exactly into that. If I'm doing better things on every acre of my farming, and the ROI is really calculated based on how many acres I can get done and how many acres I can get done in the specific window in which I'm farming, right? Which can be 3 months to 10 months, depending on the region. Okay. So I want to use LaserWeeder as much as I can as a farmer. And then the next big thing you run into is, well, could I do it 24/7? If I want to run it 24/7, where do I get tractor drivers from? That became the huge issue. That became the number one factor that determined how much you were going to save on LaserWeeder was how much you could run it. Okay. So then we were like, well, let's bring back the autonomy stack. And so we really, really worked hard to produce that system, and it plugs into an existing tractor and makes it an autonomous tractor. Okay. So, and that all, I mean, it was a lot of work, but I would say it was semi straightforward because we did already have the computer vision system for field navigation. It will navigate the field with it. You don't need GPS to mark out the rows. It can visually tell where the rows are. So we had all that stuff. And so, we've applied it on top of this. However, I did mention before that we had discovered a number of issues with farming on the practicality side about actually being able to use autonomy. And those issues are if a truck is driving by, or the common ones is like wildlife in the middle of the night, alerting and getting in the way, or just center pivots, right? Moving around, or trying to do a tricky turnaround at the end of the road, what have you.
Getting into a different field, having to cross a road.
That's right. So there are all these scenarios where the autonomy is not quite there yet. Not our system, not anybody's system. And so we didn't want to have a scenario where the farmer would have to go, drive around and figure out all the areas in which his autonomy had failed. That's been the problem spot. That's been the sore spot with autonomy and tractoring to date, right? If you talk to any farmer who's tried any of the other autonomy systems, they'll tell you that was always the sore spot, is you couldn't actually trust it to run through the shift. Okay. So the other key piece of infrastructure that showed up right around this time was the introduction of Starlink. Okay. The leading, constellation satellite internet technology. And we realized, my background before I was at Uber and Oculus and all these places, I used to work at a company called Real Networks way back in the day, where we developed streaming media over the internet.
I remember Real Networks. It was the thing back in the day.
Well, it was the thing, and then it became not the thing. But
yes.
But I know a fair bit about what it takes to stream video over IP networks and how that whole process works. And so we realized that you could actually get a pretty good, perfectly capable video and even control stream over that kind of satellite-based internet connection with low enough latency that you can actually sit and drive it remotely. So that's what we did to escape the exception cases on autonomous tractoring. Is if the tractor gets to a point where it doesn't know what it's supposed to do, sees something it doesn't like,
ET phone home.
More than just phone home, can be remotely taken over and controlled by one of our operators. So we have a staff of operators who are trained to do this, and they will they're intervention drivers. They'll find a problem, work around it, get you up and running again. You don't have to do anything at all. It's just part of the system. And so that has worked incredibly well. And it's one of these serendipitous kind of scenarios where some of the benefits we didn't even realize when we were developing the system. So just like with LaserWeeder, we didn't understand how much the yield improvement was going to come from not spraying stuff everywhere. Well, with the autonomous tractor and the intervention drivers, we didn't realize how nice it is actually if you're driving a tractor all day to have a room of people that are also doing the same job as you to communicate with and learn best practices from. And it actually makes it much nicer because you're never left alone to decide something difficult yourself on your own, which is what happens all the time on the farm. You're out there with a tractor and you're like, what am I supposed to do here? Right? Right. And so now we have this scenario where you have people that can help you, give you advice or whatever. And then if you really, really get stuck and you really don't know what, then you can always get a hold of the farmer and ask, what should I do in this scenario? But if it's really just some kind of standard situation that you need help on, now you have people to help you with that. And then you can move on. They also, of course, get to sit in a room with air conditioning and snacks and things. So
exactly. I mean, if I've learned anything from Clarkson's Farm on Amazon Prime, it's that farming is a continual series of challenges and problems with slightly unique or different solutions every time, and you got to figure stuff out on the fly.
And sometimes the solutions are not obvious when the first time you look at it.
Exactly. You got to get one of these things on Clarkson's Farm.
I mean, potentially, I'm a big fan of the show. And I always, and Top Gear before that, as well.
Yeah, exactly.
However, also, watching the show and being a fan of the show, I also know he's not probably the most patient with technology.
What gave you that impression?
So, it might be kind of a, maybe we actually don't want that. We'll see.
I remember him using the drone as a shepherd, and that didn't turn out so well.
Yeah, exactly. Right. LaserWeeder upside down in a creek or something. I don't know spot. I wouldn't scoff at the idea, but it's not so straightforward to say yes.
I get it. So if I recall from your materials, AutoTractor, you install it on a farmer's own tractor. Install process is less than a day, and it's reversible if they want to tear it out at some point or something like that. Is that all correct?
That's the idea. Yep.
Cool.
AutoTractor's been running since February, 24/7. It's a round-the-clock operation. We're installing more all the time. We do laser weeding is one of the activities, but not the primary or even certainly not the exclusive activity. We do a fair bit of ground prep as well, tillage, ripping, cultivation, that kind of thing, setting the fields up. All that kind of stuff. AutoTractor, we have intervention drivers, but we have a group of them, and so we don't need to take, lunch breaks or shift change or whatever. Somebody else just takes over the monitoring. So you get a lot out of it, even just from not having to, have your tractor be
sure. And someday there'll be a humanoid robot on site that can hook up a new attachment or open a gate or something like that, I suppose.
Yeah, it depends. It's interesting to see how the farm evolves. In some places, the technology is actually, evolved to be more purpose built than that. Than a general purpose human that can go do all the tasks, right? Sometimes it's more like you have a purpose built set of machines to do the tasks that you want to do. We'll see, we'll see.
Right. That is the question about humanoid robots. Are they worthwhile or are they not?
I mean, it's the ROI thing, right? If a robot can do everything the human can do, but it costs way too much money, at what point is it worth it? Humanoid robots, there's certainly some scenarios where it pencils. But it may take a while to get to the point that, everybody has one.
We are seeing crazy innovation there. We'll see how that goes over time, but it is super interesting. This is also super interesting because you mentioned off the top, farmers are jack of all trades. They have to be experts at machinery and a lot of different things. And there's a lot of ag tech, farm tech that is developing now and took a long time for the tech to get there. But this is exciting stuff. Anything that puts less chemicals on our ground, anything anything that costs less, anything that makes our crops better is better for the health of the country as a whole. So it's super cool stuff.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, I think the health thing for me, the biggest health thing for me about herbicides, yeah, I don't want it on my food. We don't want it just generally in the food supply. But the people who get hurt by this, the most of the farmers who have a lifetime of exposure to these chemicals.
Right. And we chatted about that in our first episode, actually. And there's some questions about some long-term illnesses and stuff like that from these farmers who are exposed to this stuff every season repeatedly.
Yep.
Very cool. So interesting stuff. Great stuff. Thanks for being on the show again. Really appreciate it. And thanks for all the info.
You bet. Thank you. Nice to see you again. And let's do it again soon and not wait however many years it's been.
Exactly.
You bet.